I feel like there's too many people that overcomplicate Google Ads. On this channel, I really try my best to explain it in the simplest way possible. And in this week's video, I had the opportunity to talk with a Google Ads expert that, in my opinion, has the same approach. In this week's video, I got to talk to Jyll Saskin Gales. Jyll is a former Googler, so it's not every day that you get to talk to someone that has not only been on the Google side, but also on the side of actively managing ad accounts. She has a popular TikTok channel, YouTube channel, a Google Ads coaching business, and most recently, she wrote a book, which we talk about in this video. So sit back and relax and enjoy this conversation that I had with Google Ads expert, Jyll Saskin Gales.
Absolutely. I'm Jyll Saskin Gales. I use the pronoun she and her, and I am a Google Ads coach, ex-Googler, as you mentioned, and the founder of the Inside Google Ads course, podcast, and book. My new book.
Yay!
So I've been working with Google Ads for more than a decade, small businesses launching their first $20 a day campaign, the kind of businesses that spend $1 million a day, and everything in between, e-commerce and lead gen. So I really just love making Google Ads accessible to beginners and advanced practitioners alike, and helping folks get better ROI from Google Ads.
Love it. And one thing I love about your TikTok and your YouTube, Jyll, I feel like, and this isn't a knock to other YouTubers, but I feel like some of the PPC influencers out there are talking to other people, like other agencies, other people that have been doing this for a while. One thing I love about your content is you're speaking to someone, maybe they're experienced, but maybe they're just getting started.
Definitely. It was something when I think it's because I started on TikTok. I didn't start in the PPC community, because when I left Google in 2021, I didn't even know there was a PPC community. So those first videos I created were really targeted to small business owners. And I would say through the first year and a bit of my business, that was who I served. That's who my clients were. That's who my content was for. And it was only kind of in 2022, getting into 2023, back when Twitter was Twitter, I got into PPC chat, started to make friends in the industry, realized there was this whole industry out there, right? And so now I really have two kinds of content. On LinkedIn, I would say I'm much more speaking to like other PPC professionals, and I have coaching clients there and, offerings there. Whereas on kind of Instagram and TikTok, I'm still very much speaking to, I would say, more of like a business owner or beginner audience. So it's been really great for me to be able to speak to these different audiences and then have different offers for them to help them with Google Ads.
So good. Well, when I first got on TikTok, it felt like the algorithm had just directed me to your PPC videos, because that's how I was first introduced to you. It felt like every single day you were creating multiple TikTok videos. So first off, thank you for the content that you've created, because it's helped thousands of people and it's helped me personally.
Thank you so much. I mean, there was a time in 2021 where I was posting 2 to 3 videos a day. I was really in it. That was when I grew from nothing to like 50K. It was crazy. Now, TikTok is much more of a back burner for me. The algorithm does not love me anymore. And to be clear, when I say that, like, my content hasn't changed, but I think the kind of content that does well there has changed. And I'm just like, you know what? My focus is elsewhere now, so I absolutely still post on TikTok. I just got a coaching client earlier this month who said, oh yeah, I've been following you on TikTok forever. But I would say much more of my business now comes from YouTube and my podcast and LinkedIn, and that's kind of where I now post, multiple times a day.
Well, I've been so excited for this conversation. I feel like it's almost a year in the making. I know that we had talked maybe a year ago, and then our schedules, and then we had said, hey, maybe in a few months.
I was on maternity leave, and I was like, please ask me again when I'm actually able to do this. So I'm so glad you did. Thank you.
Of course. Well, I'm excited to talk about your book. But before I do that, I want to talk about kind of your origin story and starting at Google. And you've been on both sides of the fence. And that's something that a lot of people out there, like, they can't speak to. So you've been on the Google side as a Google employee to try to help businesses. And now you've been on the helping businesses side. So I wanted to just sit there for a second and get your perspective on being on both sides of the fence. What has that been like for you?
It's been fascinating for me. When I worked at Google, I was very much in a bubble of other Googlers. As I said, I didn't even know that there were like conferences and publications and Reddits and all these things out there. It was very much just like, I am a Google salesperson and these are the narratives we're given, and Google Ads is great, which it is. And so being on the outside now, the way it's really influenced my perspective is I'm someone who advocates for working with the system. rather than against the system. And what I noticed when I first left Google in 2021 and started getting more into the industry in 2022 is a lot of people build their brand and their offer is like, oh, here's a hack. Google doesn't want you to know. Or like, oh, Google's trying to rip you off. Make sure you do this to fight back. And that's great, power to them. But my message has always been a complete inverse of that. It's look, Google's going to Google. Google's a multi-billion-dollar company. So here is perspective on how to get that working for you, on how to leverage what we know about how Google thinks and how Google works to get it working for your business. And that perspective is something that I think is still unique in the industry. And so that's what I love to do. There's no like insider secrets. I know I probably should say I have insider secrets, but like there's no big secret. It's just like because I worked inside of Google, I understand that mentality. So when Google makes a new product announcement, like, oh, now you can pick your different, channels you want for demand gen, I'm able to think through and process that, I think, in a bit of a different way than other folks in the industry. And so I like sharing with my course members, with my audience, here's how to think about that. Here's how to make this change work for you, whether it's a change we see as positive, which I think many people would see that one as positive, or a change like keyword match types, exact is no longer exact. Most people would see that as a negative, but I think, okay, well, how can that benefit me? Why might Google have done this? And how can I get that working for my business? So that's the mentality I like to adopt as a Google insider. And look, I go teach at Google now. I was just there last week speaking. So I do like maintaining that good relationship because I'm able to keep that insider perspective, but also have enough distance to not just be drunk on the Kool-Aid, I say, like I used to be.
Yeah, I feel like you're very neutral with your approach, which I really appreciate. And I think a lot of people don't understand Google has tens of thousands of employees. And in any organization, there's employees that are unbelievably amazing. And then there's employees that maybe aren't the best. And I feel like a lot of the feedback out there on Reddit might be highlighting some of those extremely negative perspectives and not highlighting like the overall.
That's true. And as well, there's a lot of people who will reach out to you from Google who are not actually from Google. They're the extended workforce or things, and we can say what we want about the horrible recommendations and stuff. But again, like Google's a multi-billion-dollar company, hundreds of thousands of employees and contractors, and it's a sales team. Whether you're talking to a contractor or a Googler, it is not a support team. It is a sales team. And so again, would it be great if every single business owner could call up Google and get personalized advice for their account? Yeah, it would be great, but that would not be profitable for Google to offer that. So I'm not trying to like apologize for Google or make excuses for them potentially ripping off small business owners by giving horrible advice. But I think the twist I put on it is like, Google is a for-profit company. They train people to do something at scale that's really difficult. And your best defense, if you're not sure if you should trust what Google's telling you or not, is just don't do it. It's your money. Yeah.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. Well, let's dive into the book. Super excited to talk about this. And yeah, you've got your copy there.
Yes.
So Inside Google Ads, and this book, well, first things first, like what was your primary motivation behind writing this book? Because that's a lot of work.
It was a lot of work. Actually, it came out and I was like, really? It's only that thick? I feel like it's so much bigger. But my primary motivation for writing it, and talk about it a little bit in the foreword, was just, I started it in 2022. Nothing I wrote from 2022 is still in it because, of course, the platform has changed so much. But I started in 2022 because at that time, I had been on social media doing my thing for about a year. I'd recently launched my Inside Google Ads course, and I just wanted an opportunity to explore in more detail. Because whether it's a TikTok video or even a YouTube video, you need to have a hook and maintain attention and all this stuff. And I just wanted to go deeper, maybe a bit nerdier, and really unpack this perspective of not just like what is audience targeting, but why is it this way and how can we best use it? And I just knew that social media or even YouTube or a blog wasn't the right format for that. So I started writing. And in the first week I wrote, I had more than 30 pages, and then I didn't look at it again for 2 years. But that was my motivation, just to be able to really go deep with those people out there, whether it's business owners or practitioners, who don't want to be just told what to do, but want to understand why. And so that's really who I wrote this book for, people who want to understand the why of Google Ads.
So obviously there's a lot out there on the internet about audience targeting and do this and don't do this, and everyone's got an opinion. In your professional opinion, what do you think is one of the biggest misconceptions about audience targeting inside of Google Ads?
I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that audience targeting just means retargeting. When people think of audiences, they immediately think, oh, retargeting, remarketing, website visitors, customer match, done. And while that is absolutely powerful, and I think that customer match is one of the most important audience targeting capabilities in Google Ads, retargeting, or your data segments, as Google calls it, is just one kind of audience targeting. There are so many other ones that are extraordinarily powerful.
Is there any audience targeting method, and maybe you can just give a tease, everyone needs to go buy your book, but is there any audience targeting method that you think is underutilized in the platform with the small businesses that you talk to?
100%. So the newest audience targeting capability in Google Ads is called a Google Engaged Audience. This came out sometime in 2024 and completely underutilized. And this is not for sophisticated practitioners, which is why I love it, because most new features we get, like, oh, customer retention goals and PMAX, like only the most advanced Google Ads practitioners need that, you know? But the Google Engaged Audience is something great for beginners and small business owners. And essentially, it's a your data segment, a remarketing list built of people who have engaged with your brand through paid and organic Google channels. So what that means, every Google Ads account automatically gets one. It's a Google Engaged Audience, and it's people who sure have engaged with your ads, whatever ads you're running, but also who've clicked on your map listing or your organic search results or your YouTube videos, right? That all gets added to your Google Engaged Audience. And so it's a way that any Google Ads account can do remarketing without having to connect Google Analytics or install the Google tag. So I love the Google Engaged Audience. I don't know why Google didn't make a bigger hoopla about it when it came out, but it's so great for small businesses and new accounts because there's no complicated conversion tracking, consent mode, enhance, any of that required. You just, boom, have a remarketing list you can use. So engaged audiences, I will keep singing from the rooftops about them.
Okay, you've heard it here first, folks. Such a great point that you bring up there in terms of small businesses might not have all the technological capabilities or web developers on call. And I feel like there's a lot of stuff out there on YouTube where it's like, here is, if everything that you need to do to run a successful Google Ads campaign, A, B, C, D, E, and it can be overwhelming for small businesses. So I think what you just call out there is super important. You don't have to, I mean, it's great if you can have everything configured properly. And, one of the foundational elements of Google Ads is proper conversion tracking, and all that is so great. But I think it's also important to note that you can still have a successful Google Ads campaign without going to the fullest extent of all that stuff.
Yeah, it's trickier. I mean, running Google Ads with a small budget is running Google Ads on hard mode. Like when I worked at Google, I was part of the large customer sales organization. So I worked with businesses that spend millions of dollars a year on Google Ads. And it's way easier to do that. With a small business, you launch a new campaign, you maybe even spend $50 a day, and it's going to take a couple of months to really optimize and get that thing working or learn that it's not going to work. Whereas when you're spending, 5-6 figures a day, 7 figures a day, you learn very fast what works or not. The Google algorithm learns very fast what works or not. And in a way, yeah, it's actually easier to drive better results that way. So, in my coaching business and in my courses, I absolutely have like the large and sophisticated advertisers there, but I also make sure to always make space and make it approachable to the kind of smaller budget accounts, because they're really the ones that need more help and often can't afford the most expert help, right? It's that catch-20.
Well, let's continue the conversation on audience targeting in Google Ads. And over the past several years, there's been a lot of announcements, a lot of changes surrounding privacy and third-party cookies, and they're going to be deprecated and they're not. Can you just level set with us, like right now, like where do you see things with audience targeting with all these privacy concerns out there?
So funny you say that. The last chapter in the book is about privacy and cookie changes. And even as I write that chapter, I started by saying, hold on, I'm going to read it to you because it's funny. I say, I didn't want to write this chapter. This is one of the last things I'm writing before sending this off, not because it's not important, and that's why I'm powering through for you, but because Google Ads has always been simple and this privacy stuff is not. So I have it right there. So I do have that. I do talk about it. Interestingly, now Google is keeping third-party cookies again in Chrome, we just learned. Look, the most important thing you can have as an advertiser yeah, I'm going to stand behind what I'm about to say, is your personally identifiable information from your audience, which is like an email address, a phone number, something. That's why when you go to any website, people are like, get 10% off, sign up for our newsletter. Having that personally identifiable customer information, a customer list, it is a kind of audience targeting you can use, but even not for targeting purposes, like having that customer list in your Google Ads account or any ad platform account, it's going to inform the bidding algorithm. It's going to inform things like optimized targeting if you're using that in Google Ads. So that is so, so, so powerful because that is data you own. It's like one of the very few competitive advantages you can have in a world where AI is taking over so much of the work we're doing here. So I say all that to say, like, who knows where all this privacy and cookies and everything is going? It's different in every jurisdiction, and the way politics goes, like, so much is unknown. But what we do know is that having personally identifiable information, what in Google Ads we call customer match, is one of the most important things you can have if you want to have an advantage over your competitors in the ad auction.
Control the controllables.
Focus on what you can control. Exactly.
Love it. Love it. So also with this book, obviously you're focusing on audience targeting. I'm sure you've seen some success with businesses over the years. And maybe that's one of the reasons why you wanted to get the word out about this, is because you've seen some of the results that it can drive. Without disclosing anything confidential, is there any success story that you can share about audience targeting in Google Ads?
Oh my goodness, there's so many. I'll share one that I think is a bit more of an unusual one. One of the many ways you can use audiences is as a layer with your search or shopping campaigns. So in a search or shopping campaign, you can add your audiences on targeting mode. And what that means is the user search still has to match to your keywords or your feed, and the user has to match that audience requirement. And so this was something I did back when I was managing ads for people. When I started my business, I was working with this e-commerce company, and they sold secondhand clothing. And so shopping ads were really difficult for them because if someone searched like, Old Navy shirt or Gap jeans, their shopping ad would show up. But of course, 99.9% of people were not looking for secondhand, right? They wanted the new thing. And we tried a few things, like, how can we get this to work? And so what we ended up doing is we applied a remarketing list on targeting to the shopping campaign. So we said we only want to show a shopping ad if the user has visited our website within the last 90 days. Because by doing so, we know that they're at least familiar with us, so that when they see our shopping ad there with a much lower price than a new item, but they would understand why, and that worked really well for us. So that shopping campaign, like the ROAS was far below 1, not profitable at all. And after we implemented this, ROAS went to 2.5 for shopping. So I like the little stories like that of like unique and interesting ways for businesses that have unique and interesting challenges. There are often really interesting audience targeting solutions for that.
So good. So good. And I'll just echo what you're saying, especially on the shopping side. So on this channel, we've got a video about Google shopping tiers and the different priority levels that you can assign. And we won't get into it in this video. But there is some really cool stuff that you can do where you use negative keywords in shopping and leverage the priority system. And then you have audiences in the background and you're bidding up or down on audiences. So powerful. So powerful.
It really is. Yeah.
Love it. So I should have asked this question when we were talking about privacy and third-party cookie deprecation and all that. Where do you see the future in Google Ads? So we're loading up Google Ads here at some date in the future. Where do you think audience targeting sits in the future of the Google Ads roadmap?
Well, when I think about either the present or the future of Google Ads, I really define it in like 3 core places. There's your bidding, your targeting, and your creative. And in my opinion, in my experience, for bidding, like AI is one, smart bidding is it. Are there exceptions? Of course, but like for the most part, smart bidding is the way. Targeting is this place where I'd say we're at like 50-50. There are solutions like optimized targeting, like performance mass campaigns that absolutely work really great in some instances and terribly in others. And so targeting is in this middle where like AI can be great in some instances, but human input also great in other instances. And then the third piece is creative, where although AI can be an assistive tool, I would still argue that creative is like 95% still a human endeavor. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that's how I think about the future, really, is how is AI changing these 3 core pillars of Google Ads, the bidding, targeting, and creative. So I think that over time, from a targeting front, AI will get there. I mean, look, I just wrote a whole book about audience targeting, but probably in the next 5 years or so, like we're not even going to have the option for keywords or audiences or anything.
I did
And
say,
so that
is it version 1 of the book? So you could always have a
this
version
is the
2.
first edition. Yeah, I'm
The
already
first
working on the
edition.
second edition now. But creative is the piece I'm really interested in. I spoke about it a bit at SMX Munich, but I would by no means say I'm an expert in creative. But that's an area where I think there's so much opportunity as PPC practitioners for us to improve our skills, especially as Google Ads now really, you got to go beyond search. There's demand gen, there's video, all kinds of things. And those are just not skills we've had to have in the past, the way that maybe Meta Ads practitioners or TikTok Ads practitioners have had to have. So in terms of where Google Ads is going, I see the creative piece as being exceptionally important alongside that first party audience data piece, because that's really what you have to feed into the system that your competitors don't have. But like your competitors have access to the same bidding algorithms as you, they have access to the same targeting algorithms as you. Having your own data feeding those algorithms is how you get an advantage. And then having amazing creative that stands out versus your competitors is how you get an advantage.
And maybe another advantage, I mean, could be available to the public, but are there any tools or resources that you recommend or that can be used in conjunction with the teachings from your book that you see success with?
I mean, one of my favorite tools is Keyword Planner. I know people love their like third-party keyword research tools, which power to them. The Keyword Planner is immensely powerful. Something that I really like to do. It's not in the book because it's not audience targeting, but it's something I have been speaking about at conferences. I'm still looking for a name for it, this tactic. So I've called it indirect competitor targeting. I've called it non-brand conquesting. But basically what you do is you go to Keyword Planner, and you start with a website and you type in your competitor's website. And then Google will tell you which keywords it associates with your competitor's website. And that's why I am toying now with calling this non-brand conquesting moving forward, because the idea then is you can conquest your competitors by going after their non-brand, going after their organic traffic, since these are the keywords they're likely to surface for organically. So that is a tool. Keyword Planner is a tool I'm sure we all know well, but that is a creative way that I like to use it. Type in a competitor's website, see the keywords associated with it. You can put those in your search campaigns. And of course, you can also add them to a custom segment. It's kind of audience targeting, and then use that in your display or demand gen or video campaigns.
I second what you say. And I recently had a video about expensive PPC and SEO tools out there. And what a lot of people don't know is keyword recommendations and the insights that you can get with that, for me, are one of the primary reasons that I use some of these tools. And in most instances, they're getting data directly from the Google Ads Keyword Planner. And so businesses are paying hundreds of dollars for these tools. They're primarily using it for keyword recommendations and some of the other things that you mentioned. And then they could have gotten that for free inside the Keyword Planner. So I agree.
And I think that's
Underutilized.
my legacy of being an ex-Googler, that I'm like, well, there's just Keyword Planner. Why would you want to use anything else? So again, I'm sure there are benefits to these other tools, but I very much stick to Keyword Planner. Google Trends can also be really helpful. Doesn't work if you're like super niche, but can be really helpful as well to get keyword ideas, to understand what's going on in the industry. Google used to have a lot more of these small business tools. They deprecated a whole bunch of them around 2022, unfortunately. But those two are great. Keyword Planner and Google Trends, both free to use.
So good. So good. Well, Jyll, this has been a great conversation. I guess the next question that I have before we finish is what's next for you? So you just published a book, you're busy with your community, your YouTube channel, creating content. What's next for you?
What's next for me? Gosh, well, I'm already thinking about book number 2. I have a few different ideas for what the topic will be, so I'm working on that. For my Inside Google Ads course members, I'm working now on bringing in more guest expertise. So I actually just launched a few lessons on local services ads with Anthony Higman as my guest expert, and I have some lessons coming in about Google Merchant Center, Google Analytics, so kind of these areas that are very related to Google Ads, but are not my own expertise. So I'm really excited to bring in guest experts for my members. And honestly, I want to have a relaxing summer with my family. So that's what's coming up for me too, hopefully.
So good. So good. So if you're considering a second book, there must have been some rewarding elements for your first book. So question is, what was the most rewarding part of writing the book?
The most rewarding part of writing the book, I think Two things come to mind. First is when I start to see the pictures people are posting on social media, like all excited when the book arrives. And I don't know, I think it has a pretty distinctive cover. So just seeing that all over my feed has been really exciting. And the second is my mother was actually the first person to read my whole book cover to cover. She does nothing at all to do with digital marketing. I will not reveal her age or she'd kill me, but this is not like in her wheelhouse. But she read the whole thing cover to cover in one day, and she really enjoyed it and like asked me some questions about the content that showed me that she understood it. And so that was really rewarding for me. And then also, actually, the third piece, I dedicated the book to my daughter, and she can read now. That's a new skill of hers at 6 years old. And so she took it in to show her teacher and read the dedication to her teacher. So I'd say that's the third very rewarding part as well of writing the book.
I love that. Well, congratulations. This has been such a fun conversation. I appreciate you taking the time just to come on the channel for a half hour or so. How can my audience learn more about you? I'll provide a link in the description to your book and your website, but how can they learn more about you, Jyll, if they want to?
That's the best way to learn more about me is you can follow me on YouTube. And I also have a free weekly podcast, the Inside Google Ads podcast, which I do release on YouTube in video and audio form. And I have a free weekly newsletter called The Insider, where I share a real Google Ads case study every single week. You can sign up for that on my website at free.jyll.ca.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jyll. Appreciate your time today.
Thanks, Scott. Me too.